We interrupt this record to bring you a special bulletin. The reports of a flying saucer hovering over the city have been confirmed.
Did you really go out with an alien? Uh-huh. What was it like? Real different.
Becoming Human, a Mork and Mindy podcast. Hello, listeners. This is Paula Schaffner with episode 63, Mork the Swinging Single. This first aired on March 12th, 1981. The IMDb synopsis is, Mork becomes a swinger after Mindy suggests he see other single women. And we'll find out that's not exactly what the situation is. This was the 51st Mork and Mindy episode directed by Howard Storm. It's the third Mork and Mindy episode written by Wendy Count and the second by George Zadislow. We start with a sunny daytime exterior of the house with flowers blooming, so it's spring. From stage right to stage left, Glenda, Mindy, and Jeannie are eating cake at the dining table. Glenda is in a pink outfit that has knee socks, shorts, and a sweatshirt, and the sweatshirt has white stars on it. Mindy is in jeans and a plaid long-sleeve blouse. Jeannie is in a gray jogging suit with University of Colorado on it. In case you're wondering where she goes, there are some navy blue racing stripes. Mindy asks if she can talk to you guys, as she calls them, about something personal. Glenda guesses that Mindy got a tattoo, which would be pretty outrageous for Mindy at that time. Mindy and Jeannie laugh in disbelief, and Mindy says, no, it's about Mork. Jeannie asks if he's still lighting a candle every day in memory of Edith Bunker. This is a reference to how the character Edith Bunker was killed off camera at the beginning of the second season of Archie Bunker's Place, which was sort of a spin-off / sequel to All in the Family. That episode aired on November 2nd, 1980, so that's fairly timely. It's an example of how Mork strongly identifies with television characters, and she was a very much beloved TV character for many people. Mindy laughs and says yes, meaning Mork is still lighting candles for Edith, but that's not the problem. Looking down and clasping her hands, she says, the problem is she met this guy through work and he asked her out to dinner and she doesn't know whether she should go or not. I'll just say right now, we never find out anything more about this guy, whether he works at the news station or it's somebody she interviewed or anything about how she met him through work. We never hear how the date goes. It's just for this setup. And there could be many reasons why she's not sure if she wants to go out with him. But Jeannie takes it only one way. She says, what's the problem? You and Mork are just good friends. So she's assuming that Mindy is hesitating just because of this ambiguous relationship that Mindy has with Mork. Mindy says, well, yeah, we are, but we really haven't dated anyone the last year, and it just kind of worked out that way. So it sounds like they never promised that they wouldn't date other people, but they just haven't happened to. I know that she hasn't gone out with anybody since we saw comparatively a lot of her romantic life in season 1, including her ex-fiancé. In Mork's Nightmare, we saw a guy that he imagined that she would have married if Mork hadn't come along. In season 2, we had more of Mork potentially dating or being with other women, including the one who faked a pregnancy, and the whole weird dynamic with Nirvana. And also in season 2, we had the Jeannie Loves Mork episode where Mork dated Jeannie, but was more doing it to cheer her up, and he saw it platonically. And in season 3, we just haven't really had any of those situations come up.
Well, then live, Mindy. Grow. Expand your soul. Humanity is the palette from which you color your relationships. Huh?
There's this thing with Glenda where, again, they didn't want to make her into a dumb blonde, but they give her this sort of pseudo-philosophical view of life, and we get some of that in this episode. And also, this may sound really petty, but I was really noticing how cross-eyed she is in this scene. Glenda says that if they go out and meet new people, it can enrich and ennoble their attitudes towards each other. And then she says, in other words, Mindy, fool around. Mindy giggles. Again, we don't know what happens on Mindy's date. On the one hand, Glenda is saying that if you get to know different people, then you become a better person, and then you have more to bring to your relationship with Mork. But she's also, is she telling Mindy to get laid? I'm not clear what's going on here. Jeannie says Glenda may be right. Meeting new people could be a lot of fun for both Mindy and Mork. Mindy thinks this is good advice, and they all laugh because this is what Mindy wants to hear. Mindy says now Jeannie can tell Mork, meaning tell Mork that she wants to go on a date. They all laugh again. Mindy looks down again. She says that it's true, and Mork should meet more people. After all, that's why he came to this planet. And then she quickly changes that to place. She laughs it off, and Jeannie looks puzzled, but nobody follows up on this and says, what do you mean by came to this planet? So she almost outs Mork, but they don't pursue it. Glinda says she hates to eat and run, but she has to burn off this cake. And she says, come on, Jeannie. So again, the two of them are hanging out together. She stands. Jeannie has a little bit of chocolate on her fingertip. She moves it towards her mouth. She says, enjoy it lips before it ends up on hips. And that is a little bit like a Rhoda Morgenstern line for the Mary Tyler Moore Show about how she doesn't know why she's bothering to eat this. She should just apply it directly on her hips. And they all laugh. Mindy and Jeannie stand and they all head towards the front door. They say goodbye, but then Jeannie says if Mindy does go out with this guy, she should see if he has a brother or a cousin or a nephew or an uncle or a grandfather. So again, Jeannie is not having much luck finding anybody to go out with. Mindy laughs. Glenda and Jeannie leave, and Jeannie shuts the door. Nice little scene of the three women hanging out, and Mindy turning to them for advice, and their advice is pretty sensible, better than some of their advice in the past. Mindy hums to herself a little bit as if she's thinking. Then she calls up to the attic because she wants to talk to Mork for a minute. He says, oh sure, Min, here I come, catch me. Then he throws what looks like 2 quilts downstairs. He descends the stairs and says, now I know who not to call in case of a fire. It was like he expected her to catch him. He picks up the quilts. He says he's preparing early for their usual Saturday evening television marathon, and then he laughs. He carries the quilts to the couch. He says they're gonna boogie till the test pattern, and then he does the tone of the test pattern. I can't remember if I've talked about this before, how there would be a gap very late at night where there was no actual programming. There would just be an image on the screen. Yeah, that was still around in the early 80s, but I believe by the late 80s it would be phased out, and you'd at least get something like infomercials in the wee hours. He puts 1 quilt on the couch and says that it's a regulation snuggle sack. So I guess in a way Mork invented the Snuggie, although these actually look more like sleeping bags. He sits and pulls up the other quilt and says it's his own regulation snuggle sack. He says best of all, there's a little bag of popcorn, and he pulls out a huge bag from his snuggle sack. He sets it on the floor. She hesitantly asks him how he'd feel if she told him she wasn't going to watch television with him tonight. He says he'd say that Mork and Mindy have reached a new level of intimacy. So I thought that was interesting. He's referring to them in the third person. He says he'll go upstairs and put on his see-through suspenders, and they'll snap till dawn. And then he grins cheesily. So it's like he thinks they're gonna fool around, but it's expressed in kind of an innocent way. She laughs and sits next to him. She says what she means is she's not going to be here tonight. She has a date. He says, you? He bark laughs like this is a ridiculous idea. She says, yeah, me.
No, I've been thinking about it, and I think it'd be healthy for us to go out and meet other people.
Well, Min, have I stopped you from meeting other people?
Well, no, but I haven't exactly helped you meet them either. And I've been so busy trying to graduate from college and trying to find a job that we've sort of closed ourselves off in a cocoon.
Ooh. That's crazy, Min. I mean, I came to Earth to observe people. I mean, you should be able to observe people, too.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm so glad you feel that way. You know, to tell you the truth, I was a little nervous about bringing the whole thing up.
Are you kidding, Min? This conversation has changed my life. I'm going out right now and break new ground, meet new people. I'm going to get out there right now, Min. Wait, there's somebody right now.
Hey, you! Fella! Yeah, you in the hard hat. Why don't you come on up tonight? I've got an empty snuggle sack.
There's a subtext in this episode that neither of them is saying what they're thinking, and they may not even be totally conscious of it before. And we saw this a little bit when Mindy was talking to her friends, where she wasn't making eye contact, and she was looking down as she was talking about this. There was actually a pseudo-trend of cocooning. It must have been mid or late 80s. It comes up in the book Backlash, where the idea was that people would just stay in and watch TV and nest, I guess. but it wasn't actually a real trend. It was just one of these trendy trends, I guess. So I thought that was funny that the image of the cocoon shows up, and we'll hear a little bit more about butterflies and caterpillars later. And we have her sort of explaining why she hasn't dated, because she's focusing on graduating and then finding a job. But now, of course, she has graduated and she does have a job, and so she can start thinking about her personal life again. We had a thing in the Mindy episode where he said that she whistles at construction workers, and here we have him presumably platonically offering to cuddle with a construction worker on the street. There's a nighttime exterior of the house. Mork is watching TV. He's in his night clothes and he's got his snuggle sack on. There's a loud knock on the door. Mork gets up, still with his snuggle sack on, and he hops as if he's going to answer it, but he just yells that the door is open and he hops back to the couch. Remo enters and he's wearing jeans and a shirt and a scarf, but the most interesting thing was that he's wearing a New York Yankees jacket. This is a reminder that he's from New York. He's carrying a pizza box that has the Da Vinci's restaurant logo on it. He tells Mork that he brought the pizza that Mork ordered. So it's nice of him to do home delivery. I don't know if that was a regular thing of the restaurant or he's doing it because Mork is a friend. He sits and opens the box saying that it's Mork's usual, everything but tomato and cheese. And I don't know if we've had anything with Mork eating pizza before. Now, of course, we would just assume that Mork had some sort of lactose intolerance or other issues. Mork turns off the TV. Remo asks where Mindy is. Mork says she's out with some guy having her horizons expanded, which is kind of suggestive sounding. Remo says she's got a date, and he seems kind of angry about this. It's not because he's interested in Mindy. Mork says that Mindy says with these experiences she'll enrich her life, and that way they'll have something to share in their golden years, assuming that they will still be together when they're elderly. Remo says, "You bought that?" Mork says, "Yeah, and the watch too." I don't know if that was a catchphrase or something. Remo says, "Look, you're a single guy, all right?" Mork says, "Yeah." This is Saturday night. With raised eyebrows, he says Mork should get out his little black book. The reason why he's annoyed with Mindy is because he thinks that Mork is stuck at home and she's out with other guys and having fun. Mork thinks that by a little black book, Remo means Roots by Alex Haley, which was not actually a little book. From what I remember, it was several hundred pages because it covers many generations. That was a very famous novelization of Haley's family history, later adapted for a very popular ABC miniseries. Remo explains he means Mork's address book. Mork realizes and calls himself Idiot Moi, as he has before. He stands and hops over to the little hutch in the dining area. He gets out his address book. Remo comes closer, so Mork hops to him and hands the address book over. Remo flips through it. He says, "Oh boy, look at this. You got a chick for every night of the week." So we know that that's how Remo sees women, at least women that Mork would go out with. He reads their names: Lola, Stephanie, Marcy. And if you were a regular viewer of the show, you'd be going, wait, Lola and Stephanie? I don't think Marcy's ever come up before. Remo chuckles and says to give them a call. Mork says he can't because they're asleep right now. These are kids from the daycare center. The joke is in somewhat poor taste, but I thought it would have been funnier if Remo had kept going and started reading some of the boys' names, like Jonathan and Billy. I don't know why Mork has the home numbers of the daycare kids, but they've been over his house. Remo says Mork must know some women with their permanent teeth. He wants Mork to think and come up with someone, anyone. Mork says, well, there's your sister Jeannie. Remo says, I don't think so. And Mork says, oh yeah. And I don't know if we're supposed to remember the Jeannie Loves Mork episode. Maybe we're just supposed to take it as Remo doesn't want his friend dating his sister. Then Mork thinks of Glenda Fay. Remo thinks this is perfect because she's single and she lives in one of those singles complexes. Mork sucks his teeth, like this is how he indicates being excited. Remo says to give Glenda a call, so Mork hops over to the phone. Remo sits nearby on a bar stool. He tells Mork to just relax. Mork stutters and asks what he should say to Glenda. Remo suggests, what are you doing tonight, Glenda? Whatever Mork does, he shouldn't sound hard up or lonely.
It's rang 2 times. Hello, Glenda. Hi, it's me, Mork. That's all, it's just Mork. Yes, hi? What am I doing? Well, whatever it is, I'm not hard up or lonely. Yeah. Well, actually, right now I'm having a party with all my friends. Whoa! My picture deal? Yes. What are you doing? Oh, whoa, you're having a Japanese dinner party. That's wonderful. Sure, I can come. Oh, yes. Glenda, I have one question. When you eat sushi, do you eat it with the fingers or do you eat the fingers separately?
Remo has given Mork some bad advice in the past, like telling him to fight with Mindy. This, again, is not bad advice. There's not really a reason why he shouldn't go out with Glenda. I mean, I don't like her personally, but she is available and she likes Mork. I don't know if Remo himself is interested in Glenda. But in case, Remo is doing his best to help Mork, including faking a party, which for some reason Mork has a dog attending. Mork kind of blows it by asking if you eat sushi with fingers or you eat the fingers separately. Remo looks understandably worried, face palms. It'd been a while since I watched this episode and I was kind of dubious about the Japanese dinner. It's not as cringy as it could be. There definitely is some cultural appropriation going on, but I've seen worse, including on this show. There's a nighttime exterior of an apartment building, and I can't tell if it's the same as we've had before. There's definitely a different layout for Glenda's place than we got last time, and we can see that it is decorated in a Japanese style for the party. What the subtitles describe as funky music plays, and I thought it had what I think was supposed to be kind of an Asian touch, but there may have been a music rights substitution, so I have no idea what the background music was originally. The guests are in kimonos and robes. People seem to be paired off, man and woman, but not permanently, so like they're talking to somebody they're interested in, but they're kind of drifting around the room, and they didn't come as couples. The doorbell rings. Glenda calls, "Come in." Mork is wearing his white-colored shirt and plaid bow tie, so it's like he's kind of dressed up, but he's also wearing just his jacket and blue slacks. He lets himself in. Glenda does what I guess is supposed to be like a geisha walk over to the door. She says, "Hi, Morky-san." He says, "Hayakawa, Glenda Faye." I assume that Hayakawa is a reference to S.I. Hayakawa, who was a senator from California from 1977 to 1983. He was Canadian-born, but of Japanese ancestry. Mork is carrying a bouquet that's red, white, and pink. He hands the flowers to Glenda, and she says, "How sweet." He says, "No, they're not. I tasted them." She giggles. She says he's such a little kidder. She offers a little sake. He says to make it two, one for each footy, like sock. Saki. They both laugh. He's taken off his jacket, so he hands it to her, and then she hands it to an Asian-looking woman without saying anything. You might think that this is Glenda's maid, but she seems to be a guest. So the woman goes and puts the jacket in another room. That just bugged me a little bit. I felt like it could have been handled a little bit differently. Glenda would like Mork to meet all her friends. He says, "Thus begins my growth experience." And she doesn't question this because he's quoting Mindy, who is quoting her. She leads him closer to the middle of the room. She says, "Hey everybody, this is Mork." They all say hi. He stutters hello and says he'd like to thank them all. He has a lot to share with Mindy, and good night. He heads towards the door. Glenda goes after him and says, "Get back here, sillykins." So she's kind of condescending, but she didn't irritate me as much as usual in this episode. She means well, and most of the characters in this episode mean well. She pulls him back. She wants him to stay a while and just mingle. He questions this, and she insists. She encourages him, and they both chuckle. He approaches a woman with short blonde hair who's wearing a red robe and black slacks and black stilettos. We'll later find out this woman is named Pepper. He says Nanu Nanu, but he doesn't offer her the Nanu Nanu handshake. The man that she was talking to walks away, so she turns to look at Mork. He asks her if she'd like to mingle. She shrugs and says sure, she'll try anything once. Like she doesn't know what mingling means. She looks down his slacks and asks if they're bell-bottoms. He asks why. Are my cuffs ringing? She looks up and says, "Excuse me, I think we have to stop seeing each other." She walks back to the man she was talking to. Mork's mouth drops open as if he's shocked and hurt. Boy, in 1981, bell-bottoms were definitely out of fashion. It was more a thing of the, I guess, late 60s through mid-70s. Mork's pants are more baggy. They're not really flares. What would have been in fashion would have been tight jeans. He mumbles, "Party chatter, party chatter." There's a man and a woman on the couch, and the woman has wavy, long brown hair and a very short green robe, apparently without slacks. She says, "Excuse me, are you on something?" implying that he's on drugs. And he says, "Yes, this lovely plush pile carpet." The woman turns away but glances back at him in disdain. He says he'll go over here, pointing, and motivate. The woman condescendingly nods. He drifts away. He checks himself for flower breath. Glinda is looking on in concern. She comes over and asks if he's having a nice time. He doesn't think her friends like him very much. He feels kind of out of place, like Nancy Reagan at a soul food parlor. So I think that's our first Nancy Reagan joke, emphasizing that she was very white in a negative sort of way. And I won't get into the Reagan's racism, but it is well documented. Glinda Fay looks around fretfully, then tells Mork to loosen up a little. She suggests he tell a joke. He tries to stop her as she has everyone gather around to hear him tell a joke. She says he's such a funny man.
Okay, Mork.
I only know one joke, Glinda.
Oh, great. Tell it.
Okay, Glinda, thank you. No pressure. Well, you see, these two Venusians walk into a bar. And one Venusian says, don't spoil it, you know the ending. One Venusian says, give up, bubble. And the other Venusian says, go fetching Gafornik. And then the bartender says, Gafornik, I can't even drink the water.
Oh, dear.
Of course, we've seen that Mork knows far more than only one joke, but I think he feels pressured, so of course he defaults to one about Venusians. And we have Glinda Fay, who does genuinely think he's funny, trying to encourage him, so I like that. I noticed that they have the word Gafornik, and that sounded a little bit like fornication, but I didn't know if that was deliberate. In any case, in this scene, we can see that although people often think that Mork is funny, apparently his humor is not for everyone. He asks Glinda if he can go sit in the other room with the coats. She looks sorry for him. He says it's all right, he can talk to a mink, so implying that one of her friends is rich enough to afford a mink. He says it'll be okay. She knows it's really hard meeting new people for the first time. And she doesn't bring up that she's a widow, how she was trying to get out there after Randolph died. That's sort of been dropped, but it's there in the background. She says hardly anyone fits in right away. She takes his hands and says to just do her a little favor and stay for a little while longer. He feels like a furball in the throat of life. She tells him that there's this great guy coming over for dinner tonight and she wants Mork to meet him. Everybody loves him. He's the life of the party, a regular Mr. Fun. Mork could really learn a lot from him. Mork says he's more fun than Mr. Rogers. We've had many Mr. Rogers references on the show. Then there's a knock in the pattern of shave and a haircut.
Indiana! Goldfish sushi!
This is Todd Norman Taylor.
My friends call me TNT, because I'm a dynamite kind of guy.
Go to it, TNT. Relieve the tensions of the 80s.
You're a crazy lady, you know? She's a crazy lady.
Hi, I'm Pepper.
Whoa, what's shaking Pepper? Let's sit and talk travel. You know, I've been to all 27 Club Meds. What a week that was!
Talking travel, if they only knew where I came from.
Hi, handsome.
Oh, what's your name?
Sherry.
Sherry? Whoa, what's cooking, Sherry? Would you hold it against me if I told you you had a great body? I'm on a roll!
So yes, it's the return of Bill Kirchenbauer as Todd Norman Taylor, aka TNT. And I'll say right now, his material isn't as good this time. For instance, he's shaking as if he's rattling his chains, but they're not moving. It's not a bad performance or appearance, but it just wasn't up there with the last time we saw him, where he was the best thing about the episode. Glinda wants him to relieve the tensions of the 80s. I don't know which tensions she's referring to. And as he did before, he calls her a crazy lady. And we have him talking with Pepper. He refers to the 27 Club Meds, and I think that was a fairly new thing. It looks like Club Med was actually founded in 1950, but I feel like it became a bigger thing in the 80s, at least for Americans. The woman in green is named Sherry. TNT reverses, if I said you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? And I wasn't sure if that was deliberate, but neither of the women seems to mind, and they're really really turned by him. Meanwhile, Mork is looking on and thinking they're impressed by travel. If only they knew where Mork is from, but of course he can't tell that to impress them because he would be giving away that he's an alien. Mork goes over and says, "Excuse me, Mr. Fun, may I talk to you?" TNT looks at him and he's still got his arms around Pepper and Cherry. He says, "What's the matter, guy? Run out of wallflower seeds?" Which is kind of harsh, but he will redeem himself. He and the women laugh. Mork mimes that remark stabbed him in the heart. And maybe that makes TNT feel guilty, because he stands up and says, "Excuse me, ladies." He goes over to Mork, who's now by the snack table. He touches Mork's arm and startles him. He tells Mork to lighten up, party, party. Mork stutters an apology. He sees himself as a loser, a social misfit. TNT says, "You forgot Dud." But then he puts his hands on Mork's shoulders and says he understands. He's been washed up on Shy Beach before. So both he and Glenda admit that they aren't always these fun party people. He chuckles. He says he couldn't surf, couldn't ski, couldn't even ride a mechanical bull. So that's at least the third reference to mechanical bulls and or urban cowboy. He laughs, but then he looks more serious and says, "Let's face it, I was a pretty shallow guy. By his standards, you're shallow if you don't have trendy hobbies."
What'd you do?
Put my act together. Props, little wardrobe, but most important of all, style.
What style?
Well, you see the way you're dressed?
Oh, yes.
That's not it.
Oh.
Tell you what, guy, you stick with the master, and in no time, I'll make you just like me from top to bottom.
Well, I guess I got a good head start, because my bottom looks like your top.
It's very clear that Bill Kirchenbauer and Robin Williams were amusing each other, and we can see Robin breaking character a little bit. Although Bill Kirchenbauer played a character in his first appearance as a customer in the music store who was very self-conscious about having his toupee exposed, here he's actually a good sport about his baldness. As with Remo, he means well. It's actually kind for him to take Mork under his wing. This is sort of the setup of the episode, but not. And I'll talk about that at the end. There's another sunny daytime exterior of the house, and this time we can see the Jeep is parked up front, which is always a sign that Mindy is home. Jeannie is sitting on a bar stool as Mindy is in the kitchen pouring them coffee. They're both in jeans. Jeannie is wearing a mid-length sleeved red blouse with a black and white checked vest and kind of a ruffly bow tie. And Mindy, I actually went, "Ah!" when I saw it. Mindy is in that pretty ugly brown sweater with the blue, red, and green triangles. Jeannie asks how Mork's been lately. We don't know yet how much time has passed, but clearly Jeannie hasn't seen him recently. And in fact, Mindy says she hasn't seen much of Mork lately. It seems that Mindy unleashed a singles monster on Boulder. Jeannie thought that that's kind of what Mindy wanted. Mindy has seen new people, Mork's seen new people. Mindy says yes, but they sure aren't seeing each other. Jeannie says, "Well, come on, Mindy. You can't be busy every single minute." Mindy says, "Oh yeah?" And she wants to show Jeannie something. She sets down her cup and goes to the hutch that we saw earlier. Jeannie turns so that Mindy can show her some note paper, it looked like. It wasn't in a notebook. It was just like a notepad, maybe. This is for Monday. From context clues, it seems that this is happening on Monday, and they're talking about Mork's events that day. The first page is just 8:20 a.m. breakfast, but the next page has 10:48 a.m. competitive lip gloss tasting. And it could be that Mork is just tasting lip gloss, but the implication is that he is kissing women wearing different flavors of lip gloss. At 11:06 a.m., he's going to co-ed mud wrestling, and I think we've had references to mud wrestling before. Even though these are only 3 events so far, Jeannie says, "My goodness, he is busy every minute." She and Mindy look at each other and nod. The phone rings. Mindy says, "Oh, not again." She answers it as Jeannie stands and flips her the notepad. Mindy says, "No, Nikki Sue, Mork isn't here right now." And there's no reference elsewhere to Nikki Sue. Jeannie hands her the notepad so that Mindy can tell Nikki Sue that Mork is at the floating jacuzzi backgammon tournament. Then she says, "What? No. The finals are at 6:34. And then she says, "Okay, bye," and hangs up. So the implication is that Mork has been out painting the town pink, as he would say, and Mindy, when she's home, has been taking messages for him. Jeannie sympathetically says, "Oh, Mindy." Mindy says, "Well, maybe it is good for Mork. He's getting out, meeting people."
So why am I so bugged?
Because maybe you feel left out?
Maybe I feel left out.
Well, according to this, Mork is going to be at Glenda's party tonight. It starts at 8:41. Why don't you meet him over there? You know, kind of check out the situation?
I don't know. Al was invited too, along with the rest of Boulder. I wasn't really planning on going.
Come on, Mindy. Now, you've got to be just a little bit curious to see old Mork in action, huh?
Oh, yeah, I am. But if I go to that party and he says to me, "Hi there, chickie baby, what's your sign?" I'm gonna kick him in the Big Dipper.
Again, there's a subtext that Mindy is not facing her true feelings about Mork. We've had the thing about what's your sign before, the pickup line about astrology, and her saying she wants to kick him in the Big Dipper sounds like she's going to kick him in the crotch. And I had to wonder if most of Boulder has been invited. Were Jeannie and Remo invited? I mean, maybe they have to work at the restaurant. I wondered about that earlier. Remo is encouraging Mork to get out and do something on a Saturday night, but he's making pizza deliveries. Of course, it is a Monday, and I have no idea what is happening with Mindy's work schedule. Just doesn't come up. But that's one thing. Mindy actually has a job, but so does Mork. He works in the daycare, and he's got to be there in the morning. So is he getting any sleep? There's another nighttime exterior of Glenda's apartment building. Mindy enters the empty apartment and calls, "Anybody here? Glenda? Mork?" The apartment seems to have been redecorated for a Mexican theme, but it's never addressed directly. A conga line enters the front door. They're all singing the conga tune. It's led by Mork, then Glenda Faye, TNT, Pepper, and so on. Nobody is in any costumes this time, but Mork and TNT are both wearing jumpsuits and chains. TNT's is orange and Mork's is red. Mork greets Mindy as the Star-Spangled Surprise and amber waves of joy. It's a pretty patriotic greeting. He gives her a Hollywood kiss, that is an air kiss like you'd see on talk shows at the time. Mindy says that it's an interesting party and Mork must be having fun. He says, "Oh, for sure, for sure." I can't remember if we've had for sure before. This would be associated with Valley's speech within another year or two. When he says, "Does Norman Lear make great jets?" Of course, this is referring to Learjets and also television producer Norman Lear, who, among other things, created All in the Family. Mork bark laughs, but in some points in this scene, he does sort of a leering laugh, like when he was hosting 12 from the planet on Mork's vacation. Glenda is glad that Mindy could make it to the party. She offers her a drink, maybe the specialty of the house, Morkaritas. Both Glenda and Mork laugh. Mindy says, "Morkaritas?" Mork says the drink is kind of named after him. It's tequila and bologna. So again, more of Mork and bologna. Even though he's changed, some things never change. Glenda laughs. Mork says the mustard around the rim is optional, like salt around a rim of a margarita. Glenda and Mork both laugh again. Mindy says she'll just have a meatless drink. Glenda says okay and goes to get it. Mork excuses himself to mix and mingle, but then he holds her hand and says he's going to look for that deep relationship like she wanted him to. He says he'll catch her later when the energy's right, and he laughs like 12. And I'll talk about what's going on here more later. He lets go and she heads to the couch. He looks around the room and he approaches a woman who happens to be standing behind the couch. She's got full, longish, light brown hair and she's wearing a sleeveless blue dress with a darker blue sash. He takes this woman's hand and says, "Hello, how are you? Have you ever had deep feelings about Valor?" They smile at each other. TNT taps Mork's shoulder and says, "Hey, hitman, huddle time." Mork chuckles and tells the woman in blue that they'll do lunch one day, they'll bag it and call each other. And meanwhile, Glenda Faye has come over to join Mindy on the sofa, bringing their drinks.
I've told you the secrets of the opposite gender. Now's the time to love 'em tender. Whoa, we bad! We bad!
Hit, man?
He's a hit with all the ladies. Maybe I will have a margarita.
Mindy, you're not upset with me because I introduced Mork to all my friends, are you?
Oh, no, of course not. Well, look at him. He's having such a good time.
You know, Chickie Boo, my sixth sense tells me that we've met in a previous life. You were Cleopatra, and I was Richard Burton.
You know, Chiclet, I have 7 cents that say that we met like in a previous life. You were Lady Godiva, and I was Mr. Ed. One day we'll go to the Nautilus Center and hold our breath. Whoa.
Hey, baby, how'd you like to go up to my place for a nightcap?
Hey, sweetheart. I'd like to go over to my place for a night crawler.
I live at your place.
Oh, wow, Xanadu! I got a live one!
One thing this episode does is give us some interesting glimpses of early 80s fashion, especially for women, like that pastel rainbow jumpsuit thing. We can see here that Mork is really trying to emulate TNT, but doing it with his own twists on it because his Morkiness still comes through. And the Lady Godiva and Mr. Ed joke is a little bit suggestive, and not the first joke about a woman and a horse, because we had that Catherine the Great joke way back when. We can see that Mork is treating Mindy just like another woman to be hit on, and he's not really treating any of these women as people. Mindy gets up and walks away. She says to herself, "Why do I feel like I should be wearing a yuck button?" I'm not sure what this is in reference to, but it feels like it might have been something that was around in the 60s, or she just means that she should be wearing a button that says yuck. It made me think of Mad Magazine. Pepper comes over and says she couldn't help overhearing because she was listening. She wants to know if it's true that Mindy and the hitman are living together. Mindy says, "Oh yeah, but it's not what you think."
Oh, you'll have to tell me. I'm not into thinking.
You see, he and I are just friends.
Oh, friends. In that case, hitman?
I think she likes me, man. Isn't she nice, huh? For sure. Isn't she first? Isn't she really gnarly?
You know, Mork, maybe it's time I got into the swing of things. You mind if I mix with your friends?
Oh, sure, man. Go for it.
Real then? Thanks. Hey, TNT, want to have a megaton of fun?
Hey, baby, I'm here for the taking.
You get the jello, I'll bring the bird cage. What are you doing?
Just trying to mix and mingle, 'cause I'm single.
Party's moving to my place.
Parties at Peppers.
Wouldn't you like to be at Peppers too? Jump on the silver streak to Singleton.
Come on, Min. You can be the caboose if you can get loose.
I don't think we're on the same track, Jack.
Again, we have this subtext that Mindy is not sharing her true feelings about Mork even when Pepper kisses him. Then we have Mindy using TNT, who of course doesn't mind, to kiss him to make a point. Obviously, she's not attracted to him. We saw that she really disliked him when they met previously. Mork starts to feel uncomfortable and jealous, but he can't fully face that either. And so he reverts to imitating TNT. We get more for sure's and gnarly, which was also Valley speak. Of course, there's a Dr. Pepper reference, and everybody congas out. Catherine Campbell played Pepper, and she had just a few roles from 1978 to 83. She does some nice little spins on the character, who's shallow and stupid, but kind of okay with it. Wendy Hoffman played Sherry. She mostly seems to have done voice work, but her first role was on screen in 1978. She played a character who was named Wendy on Happy Days in 1979, and in May of 1981, so just a couple months after this, she would play Jackie in the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. She's less memorable. You know, she pretty much just has that one line asking if Mork is on something, and then she's reacting to him, and then later TNT. And I just assumed she was hired because she's gorgeous and she had those legs. I'll talk more about Bill Kirchenbauer later. There's a nighttime exterior of the house, so it's just later that night, presumably drifting into Tuesday. The announcer says, after this commercial message, we'll be back with Night Owl Theater. So Mindy is watching a very late night movie. She's on the couch in her yellow robe, and she's got a snuggle sack on over that. We can see the giant bag of popcorn, but she's also got a tray with drinks on it, like she's been camping out there for quite a while. Mork comes home with his orange jacket over his red jumpsuit. He greets her with, "Hey, crazy lady." So another thing that he's taken from TNT. She says, "Hey, hitman, you're home early. It's only 4:15, which even for a late night movie is pretty late. He hangs up his jacket and comes over. He asks if she wants to know why he's home from Roman. She guesses that he has to change for the pre-dawn donut dunk. He sits next to her and says that he saw that she left the party and he came to bring her back. It seems like he must not have noticed that she left for several hours because, let's say she got to the party at 9. She didn't stay that long. He was distracted, but at least he did finally notice and come after her. He asks why she left. She says she wasn't in the mood for a big party. She's still eating and not looking at him. She says it looked like he was having a good time with all his new friends, especially that girl Pepper.
Pepper?
Yeah, the girl who kissed you.
Oh, a lot of girls kissed me, man. I guess we're just load testing their lips.
You know, this is the first time we sat together on this couch in over a week.
Yeah, it feels pretty good.
Mork, I'm glad you found a way of life you can really enjoy. Are you happy?
Sure. I mean, it makes me happy to make you happy. And you wanted me to meet new people.
Yeah, but not as a career. Oh, Mork, I thought making new friends would help us grow together, not grow apart.
Yeah, man, I really missed you. I mean, I want to be your cuddly little caterpillar, not somebody's social butterfly.
Oh, look, that's so nice. Well, I'd rather be your cuddly caterpillar, too. I realized that the first time I walked in Glenda Faye's building.
You know, I like making new friends, but you're my best friend.
Oh, I needed to hear that.
Yeah, me too.
You know what's really nice? It's nice to have you talking to me rather than at me. You know, Mork, it's really great to make new friends, but don't forget who you are in the meantime.
Yeah, I promise. I'll just be my little old bozo self.
Hey, man, one thing. Can I keep the new friends I made?
Sure, they're fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You hear that? She likes you!
Again, there's subtext that neither of them is addressing their real feelings. We hear that lots of girls kissed him, but unlike all the times that Mindy kissed him, it just doesn't really seem to affect him. It's just kissing. And we find out that over a week has passed, so the first part of the episode took place on a Saturday, and then this is, I guess, 9 days later. He says he was doing this to make her happy, and we've had this before, that he'll do questionable things because he thinks that it makes her happy. That is very important to him, to make her happy, even if sometimes he's misguided. He has missed her. Even though he's been out having fun meeting people, he missed her. We get the mention of the caterpillar and the butterfly, so that imagery continuing. And yes, we've had episodes where Mork has befriended a butterfly or wanted to become a butterfly. And it's a symbol of transformation and change and growth. So wanting to be a caterpillar sort of seems regressive, but it's presented as a nice thing. They reaffirm that they're best friends. We're not going to get a declaration of love, but we do get a declaration of best friendship. She says that it's nice to have him talking to her rather than at her. So she's not calling him on how, by following TNT, he was treating women like objects, but it feels like he's kind of snapped out of that now. We get a reminder that he shouldn't forget who he is. Yes, he can meet people, but he needs to meet them as himself. We get him calling himself a bozo again. I have to wonder, were Glenda and TNT and everybody, were they just waiting quietly out in the hall, waiting to be invited into Conga? I know it's done for a laugh, but it kind of undercuts this nice Mork and Mindy bonding scene. Again, I wonder, doesn't anybody have to go to work in the morning? It's a Monday going into Tuesday. There's another nighttime exterior of the house. Mork summons Orson. He calls him Old Jumbo Jet Setter, so more about planes. Orson doesn't want any fat jokes tonight. Sometimes he's fine with it. We're mildly annoyed, but he specifically asks for none tonight. Mork says he's sorry. Bebo burbles, and again, Bebo is like on a platform rather than on the floor. Mork says Beebs is his best audience, kind of like his George Jessel, and then he imitates Jessel, and I think I've explained who George Jessel is before. This week, Mork has been running with a group of Earthlings who have no mates. We like to call them singles. I don't know who the we is. Orson says, "You mean you left your Earthling?" Mork says, "Oh, sir, bite your tongue. Hush your puppies." Like hush puppies. He just met other Earthlings to enrich his relationship with Mindy. And now they're closer than ever, if you know what he means. And I don't know what he means! How are they closer together? What was the point of this episode? Orson thinks it's an interesting concept. On Earth, you can be separate, but still together. Mork says, "Yes, sirree, doo-dah, sir." Mork says the most amazing thing was that he found out that it's no fun to be single alone. He guesses that that's why all those singles flock together. And then he signs off. This was a disappointing episode. It wasn't a terrible one, but I really thought it had a lot of potential in different directions. But it wasn't willing to commit to any of those. It did have a very interesting subtext, which I will delve into more. So it starts out that Mindy is going to date other people, but we don't know where that goes. And then it's implied that Mork is going to date other people. But instead of dating, he just ends up hanging out at Glenda's singles complex and going to parties and becoming like TNT. And yes, he is kissing and doing whatever else with these women, but not actually dating, not getting to know anybody as an individual. They could have had the episode be more about Mork's relationship with TNT, you know, to have a scene where Todd trains Mork and teaches him things and Mork questions that. I mean, it wasn't bad material, but I was not wowed by Bill Kirchenbauer this time. It felt more like filler, like they had this swinging singles character, and so they kind of plugged him into the situation, but then they didn't really know what to do with him. We could have had something where Glenda again reflects on how she's coping with widowhood by mingling and socializing and throwing these theme parties. That didn't really go anywhere. We could have had more of the Da Vinci. I mean, I feel like, yeah, Jeannie was probably used to her utmost, but we could have had Remo check back in and see how things are going. The Da Vinci's could have shown up at the party and reacted, and maybe they would have taken Mindy's side. There were so many different directions this could have gone, and it didn't want to go with any of them. I rate each of these episodes on a 0 to 4 egg scale, which measures how well it delivers what I'm looking for in the series. And this one is a 2.5. It's above average, but it's a bit of a letdown after the last 3. It was funny at times. It certainly is a product of its time and is interesting from that aspect. It does do some things with the characters of Mork and Mindy individually and together. Probably a more interesting than entertaining episode, I would say. I also rate these episodes on a 0 to 4 heart scale, and that is where things get even murkier. Mindy is conflicted about going out with another man, about whom we know nothing. We don't know if he's a good match for her. We don't know how attracted she is. We don't know how the date went. We don't know if she's seen other people besides him. It's just there to set up that Mork, in reaction, is going to become a swinging single. Every time there's a chance for one of them to admit, at least to themselves, that they are a couple, it's thwarted. I've talked about how this is not a shippy season, and yet it felt like season 1 was pretty clear. This was a couple that met cute and they started living together very quickly. Their bond and attraction kept growing, and she was teaching him, including about how to hug and kiss. Then season 2, some things happen, and now they're not quite sure what to do about this relationship. And when I say they, I mean both the writers and Mork and Mindy. There are moments in the episode where Mork and Mindy are clearly jealous and also missing each other, but they can't say it for some reason. And even when they reunite, they are expressing their platonic bond. And not to dismiss best friendship, it is an awesome thing, but that's never been the only thing going on with them. I thought it would be nice to have Mork and Mindy kiss. It wouldn't even have to be a big kiss, but some kind of little makeup kiss would have helped with that scene where he comes back from Glenda's party. It's just a very frustrating episode, but I think it's also kind of necessary. It's kind of like, what was the point? And yet the point is that there may not be a point. you kind of have to look at it in the larger context of the show. It's still frustrating, but I guess you can look back on it later and say, maybe this was a point where Mindy kind of woke up a little bit. Because I've always felt that the romantic feelings start earlier and stronger on Mork's side, and Mindy is more of the friend zoning one. Sorry, I know people hate that phrase, but it's the only thing I can think of to describe what she's doing when she says, oh no, we just live together, but we don't live together. There's some episodes that are ostensibly not about the relationship, but really are. And this is kind of the inverse. It's about the relationship, but like the characters, it can't face what it's actually about. I'm going to go with a 1.5 because in a sense it is below average. There is so much going on underneath, but we never get that bubbling up moment. On the Mindy episode, Mindy left town and Mork, in her absence, called her my darling and wanted to get her cloned. There is no moment, even when one of the characters is in a room by themselves, where they say something to make it shippy. Should you watch it? Yes. I don't think it's a skippable episode. Just know that it doesn't quite hit what it needs to do. And it has many chances, many paths, and it takes all of them and none of them. 2.5 eggs, 1.5 hearts. This is Paula Schaffner with Mork, the swinging single. Hey baby, what's your sign?
Why not? There's nothing preventing them. After all, there's no other pair of Czech brothers who cruise and swing so successfully in tight slacks.